What is the global triangle of terror that has been exposed? Why CIA revelations and FATF warning for Pakistan are important for India? What India must know and also not ignore at all. Two shocking revelations, one from ex-CIA and another from FATF, have put Pakistan again under the global scanner. And this time it becomes very much important for India to bring in a multi-pronged IR strategy and also be vigilant. Hello everyone, welcome to Vajram and Ravi's Flash News. My name is Shubhangi Singh and today we are going to talk about those two revelations and also understand this global terror triangular nexus that has existed and how India needs to manage this situation with special reference to Pakistan. So starting with understanding that what exactly is happening. So the first thing that has come to the attention is the fact during the time of Pervez Musharraf, when he was president in Pakistan, Pakistan's nuclear capability were very much in control of US in the name of aid that US provided to counter the terrorism in Pakistan. Now the second thing that has been highlighted has come through FATF that the grey list exit that Pakistan has got is not a permanent clean sheet and the ways Pakistan is using to finance terror are still under the radar. And all this brings to one very simple implication that at this point India needs to be very vigilant, come up with a multi-pronged international relations strategy where there is diplomacy, where there is security and also constant engagement. Now let us break this down in detail one by one. So first we will understand the CIA revelations that has been done. So here we got to know कि US जो है उसने यहाँ पर aid के through जो US aid provide करता था पाकिस्तान के लिए to counter terrorism has been used to gain control over Pakistan's nuclear arsenal including the deployment protocols. तो यहाँ पर अगर यूएस चाहता हो तो वो पाकिस्तान की न्यूक्लियर एबिलिटीज को यूज कर सकता था एंड दिस कैन easily shake up the regional peace and stability that has existed. इसके अलावा ये यहाँ पे क्लियर यूएस का एक डुअल रोल जो है दिखाता है पाकिस्तान की डुअल स्ट्रैटेजी में, जहाँ पे यूएस एक टाइम पर काउंटर टेररिज्म की बात कर रहा है बट वहीं पर उस काउंटर टेररिज्म के एड को यूज कर रहा है टू गेन एक्सेस to nuclear capabilities of Pakistan. Another thing that has been clearly highlighted in the revelation itself, that when US was focusing on counter-terrorism, indirectly it was also facilitating an anti-India stance which existed in Pakistan. Apart from this, not just two countries are involved, Saudi Arabia was also part of this nexus. When we are talking about Pakistan's nuclear and military policy, they have never been according to the international expectation. But यहाँ पे problem ये है कि इस access की वजह से जो पाकिस्तान ने US को दिया, it did not only compromise their own strategic autonomy, it absolutely compromised the regional proliferation that could have taken place because of that access. And as I said, there was another party that was attached to it which further facilitated this triangular nexus that existed, that is Saudi Arabia. Now let us understand how Saudi Arabia was involved in this particular nexus. So here we have to understand that AQ Khan, he was the main mastermind, the architect of Pakistan's nuclear bomb, and he was the one who was responsible for operating global proliferation network. In this situation, where US was trying to counter terrorism, US went ahead and protected AQ Khan because Saudi Arabia had intervened. Let me remind you of the recent defense deal that has been done between Saudi Arabia and Pakistan, which gives a lot of power to both of these countries, and an attack on Pakistan would be considered an attack on Saudi, reviving the ideas of Islamic NATO. In this situation, it shows that this relation is not new. This has existed for a very long while. And Saudi Arabia's positions have been revealed that it had a clear strategic role, especially in Pakistan's nuclear program. So all in all, we get to see that it was US, Pakistan and Saudi Arabia, which were compromising the strategic deterrence that India exercises, and anti-India terror activities were fueling from here itself. It complicates the India's regional security, the non-proliferation diplomacy that exists, and also it enhances the nuclear proliferation risks that exist. तो यहाँ पे हमें चारों तरफ से ये क्लियरली दिख रहा है कि पाकिस्तान ने एक ऐसी सिचुएशन फैसिलिटेट की जहां पर वो अपनी स्ट्रैटेजिक ऑटोनॉमी तो कॉम्प्रोमाइज कर ही रहे थे, बट एंटी इंडिया स्टांस को डायरेक्टली फैसिलिटेट कर रहे थे. एंड दिस डायरेक्टली ब्रिंग्स टू अ कंक्लूजन दैट इंडिया हैज टू कीप इन कंसिडरेशन एट प्रेजेंट ऑल्सो यूएस एज वेल एज सऊदी अरेबिया जब हम यहाँ पर न्यूक्लियर प्रोलिफरेशन की पॉलिसी स्पेशली अपने रीजन के लिए डिसाइड कर रहे हैं, मेकिंग इट कॉम्प्लेक्स ऑल्सो एंड मेकिंग इट मोर डिफिकल्ट फॉर इंडिया to make sure that we are safe and secure. Apart from this, as I started this conversation with a global terror triangular nexus between US, Pakistan and Saudi Arabia, now let us try to understand that. So if you talk about Saudi Arabia first, what did it do? It protected not only the nuclear assets of Pakistan, it went ahead as the leader of the Sunni bloc and gained funding for strategic projects, which is a win situation for Saudi Arabia. Then the main entity concerned, Pakistan. So for Pakistan, it was a win-win situation. It was receiving aid, it was receiving military assistance, it was getting regional security, and it was part of the Sunni bloc that Saudi Arabia wanted to lead. And third party, when we are talking about US, it gets a strategic hold, not just in Pakistan, but South Asia as well. It gets to stand on the narrative of counter-terrorism and also contribute to the regional dynamics that exist in South Asia, trying to be the hegemonous player it always has been. In all this triangular situation, the problem here for India, the biggest problem here for India is the proxy terror operations that go from here and they are protected by here and here. So this brings a very important strategic insight that regional dynamics, regional diplomacy and regional alliances are very complex, where we find multiple overlapping interests, and India needs to navigate this very strategically in the coming future, because in the past this has costed India a lot. Now moving to the second important part, that is from FATF, Financial Action Task Force. The main role of this very organization is to combat money laundering and terrorist financing globally. So when we are talking about Pakistan, two important lists are here, grey list and black list. When a country is in grey list, these are the ones which are in increased monitoring and they need to comply with the action plans, otherwise they will be put in blacklist directly. So Pakistan was in the grey list for a long duration of 4 years. It was delisted after many reviews, but as of now, FATF has clearly warned that Pakistan has got the delisting, but it does not mean that it is not under the scrutiny, and the new ways of terror funding that Pakistan is using is not going to work. It might put Pakistan again in the grey list. That shows that Pakistan, even after the review, even after coming out of the grey list, has not stopped with terror financing. They are using the new digital means to finance terror, be it Jaish-e-Mohammed or other terrorist outfits which are present there. So we can understand that grey list is just a warning, where blacklist has proper consequences from FATF, and FATF make sure that there are follow-up vigilance that is taking place, especially when we are talking about Pakistan in this scenario, like APG plan is there. And this is where we get to see that Pakistan is still involved, and this helps India to actually give evidence for the narrative that it is trying to build, that it is the state which is facilitating terror in Pakistan. Now let us understand what has been highlighted by FATF. So FATF has highlighted that there are being digital wallets and mass transfers which are being used by Lashkar-e-Taiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed, so that fintech channels can be used to move money internationally and finance terror. Multiple risks have been highlighted in the comprehensive update on terrorist financing risk in FATF, which also show a lot of resemblance with the tactics that Pakistan is using. And India, back in the 2022 report of National Risk Assessment, showed that the high risk source of terror financing comes from Pakistan itself. Again, the implications are very simple, that digital transactions are being used to bypass the traditional means, and what happens here is that the only thing, and what happens here is banking oversight is happening, but terror and especially anti-India stance and activities related to it remain in the very same place. This calls for a strengthened mechanism so that Pakistan does not go into that spiral again, and it might cost India heavily if the terrorist groups remain strengthened financially. Now, all of this brings us to one simple question, that what India needs to do and how all of this needs to be addressed. So first thing, we have to understand that India will have implications on all the sides: the diplomatic front, the national security front, on the front of cyber finance security, and similarly it needs to be dealt with a multi-dimensional approach. So if we are talking about the diplomatic front, there needs to be a continued FATF scrutiny on Pakistan, and India needs to hold a multilateral pressure on the narrative that Pakistan, when we are talking about the state and the terror group, they are not very far apart. Apart from that, security measures need to be taken so that there is strengthening of fintech monitoring, intelligence sharing, cyber finance tracking. And when we are talking about strategic means, diversifying energy and defense partnerships, just like Pakistan. Pakistan, a non-existent country, has partnerships which still hold it till date. India needs such partners in its bloc. It needs to reduce dependence on the US Gulf axis and make an alliance of its own, especially against such triangular axis. How that can be done? That can be done through multilateral regional organizations, be it G20, be it EU, be it APG, and the coordination will facilitate a proper anti-terror finance framework which will properly make sure that terror financing which is targeted towards India is stopped, and it will help other nations as well. Basically, the need of the hour is holistic approach, not just diplomatically, but intelligence as well as regulatory oversight as well. In this scenario, cyber financial security is a growing domain along with the conventional defense, and India needs to prepare it well in time to ensure that it stands with strategic autonomy, it stands with national security, it stands against the states which are financing terror. What are your thoughts about it? Let me know in the comments section. That was all from my side. Thank you so much.